Stop scrolling. You've been hurt, I know. No one treated you the way you treated them. Relationships. You never got what you deserved. And you know what? It was never your fault. But you blamed yourself sometimes. You blamed yourself so much that it slowly condemned you to silence. But your silence was actually your loudest scream. Today's topic. When the body is silent, the soul begins to speak. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Here we reflect the female soul in its deepest, most authentic form. And together we aim to build a strong community of women. Before we dive into the topic, I want something small but powerful from you. Like this video, leave a heartfelt comment. And now send this video to a woman who has always been by your side without saying a word. Because the words you're about to hear are actually the words from your heart. And not just yours, but all the silent women's. This truth which women have felt for centuries, but have been unable to express, is more visible today. However, it is still misunderstood. The silence of the body is presented as a deficiency. Yet this silence is a sign of an inner birth. At the moment when connections with the outside world weaken and desires are silenced, another door opens inside. When a woman begins to withdraw from the outside world, people mistake it for a disappearance. But she has never found herself so deeply before. Moving away from sexuality, relationships, and the desire for approval does not merely create a void, it also opens up space for the soul to breathe. This is not a closure, but a return to the center. Because the energy that once flowed outward now turns inward. And there something invisible awakens. In this process of turning inward, a woman remembers many things about herself. Suppressed emotions, neglected intuitions, echoes of the past, all of them emerge like signs. Dreams change. The mind becomes clearer. The heart opens to deeper emotions. Because what emerges with the silence of the body is not just silence, it is also truth. The roles society has imposed on women begin to dissolve within this silence. She is no longer merely a desired body, she is an awakened consciousness. And this consciousness begins to perceive relationships, love and connection from a different place. She no longer competes to be chosen. She no longer changes her form to be loved. Because she now knows true connection begins with oneself. This process, which appears to be loneliness, is actually the greatest encounter. With the woman inside, with her childlike side, with her wisdom, with her darkness, the parts she had always suppressed until then, now emerge one by one. This is not a dissolution but a unification. And this transformation takes place silently, without anyone noticing. It is invisible to the eye, but deeply felt. As the woman silences the noise of the outside world, she hears her inner voice more clearly. And at a certain point, there is no turning back. Because she is no longer recognizable through her eyes, her voice changes, her gaze deepens. She is now the woman she truly is. Time works differently for her. Meaning is constructed differently. No relationship, no connection can replace the bond she has formed with herself. But this is not an end. It is merely the starting line. Because inner transformation does not end with self-discovery, it continues with living it. The woman is now reborn, about to step into another way of life. And this journey has only just begun. At that very moment, a nearly mystical power emerges, the power of a woman who no longer feels compelled to be chosen. And the world fears such a woman, for it does not know where to place someone who does not seek to prove herself, who does not beg for love, who is sufficient in her own being. This woman is complete, and what is complete disturbs everything that is still incomplete. The woman realizes that the life energy she carries within her has never disappeared, it has merely retreated. With this awareness, she moves to another level of consciousness. There is no rush there, no need to prove anything. Because the silence of the body is no longer a punishment, but a language. And only those who dare to delve into their own depths can understand that language. At this point, the woman begins to confront what has been suppressed. This is not a conversation, but a state of being. As the roles on the surface dissolve, an ancient femininity rises from the lower layers, a wisdom that has been forgotten, suppressed and ignored for centuries. This wisdom does not come from books, but from remembering. The woman no longer merely lives, she remembers her own existence. But this awakening is not gentle. A restlessness arises from within, an invisible pain, a tremor, because in the absence of physical contact, the woman is not only separated from desire, but also from a sense of belonging. Everything she felt connected to slowly recedes. A void remains, and that void is initially scorching. The world seems to no longer recognize her, as if by not returning to the game of desire, she has become invisible. But invisibility is not a lack. It is the birth of a pure space. In this process, the woman begins to ask, did I do something wrong? Am I wasting my time? Am I missing out on my youth? Because the outside world screams at her. A woman's time is short. She must be desired. She must be somewhere. She must be seen. She must be taken. She must be given. And suddenly she feels she belongs nowhere. Not a lover, not a spouse, not a muse, not a role model, just herself. And this hurts like the greatest abandonment. At that moment, purification begins. Because this process is not a punishment, it is a test of crossing a threshold. Old habits knock on the door. Easy desires whisper. Those old familiar cycles call again. At least have something, the inner voice says, rather than be empty. But this path teaches not to accept the ordinary, but to wait for the profound. And the hardest part of this journey is that no one on the outside can understand what it is. Friends say, go out now. Family advises, don't shut yourself in too much. But this is not a shutdown, it is a dive. And those who remain on the surface cannot understand those who dive deep. This process is only for those who summon their inner strength. A battle begins within. The self clashes with habit. The ego feels it has lost control. But this is not a collapse, it is a surrender. If the woman persists, despite her tears and doubts, she begins to serve something greater than herself. She is about to break the cycle. And cycles are broken not by force, but by awareness. The tension she feels is not a sign that she is on the wrong path, but a sign of transition. At the moment the cocoon tightens, the butterfly is about to be born. And it is precisely at those moments that something is born, an invisible, nameless but felt presence. A new self is taking shape in the darkness of silence. The woman knows this deep down. She may not be able to explain it, to put it into words. At times she may even feel very alone, very misunderstood, very deep. But at the bottom of that depth, there is a voice. It does not shout, but it persists. It is invisible, but it is always there. And that entity is the symbol of ancient womanhood, a wisdom that flows with intuition, a bridge to mystery. The woman begins to speak with it. The conversation is not with words, but with existence. With each deepening of the inner dialogue, something else is resolved. The body is no longer still, it is in a state of ritual. It is walking in a ritual that the modern world has forgotten, but whose soul has always known. And in that walk, a small break occurs first. A vague change begins to reveal itself silently. What was previously felt as unease now gives way to questions. Deep, slow, burning questions. Why do I feel like I can't exist when I'm not desired? Why does the absence of another weigh so heavily on me? Which part of myself still continues to live in the gaze of others? The woman now realizes that silence is not an escape, but a story being rewritten. And in this story, there are no old patterns. She begins to observe her feelings, desires, and fears, as if they were mirrors reflecting the messages of a deeper self within her. She no longer needs the applause of the outside world. Her value is not measured by how much she is desired. Now she has the power to carry that value within herself in silence. And at that very moment, a kind of power emerges, silent but deep, invisible but powerful. This is the power of a woman who does not have to be chosen. She no longer begs for love. She belongs to herself. She is dangerous because she is whole, because her very existence disturbs everything that is still incomplete. The woman realizes that her energy is not depleted, it is merely gathering. And at that moment, she enters another level of consciousness, where there is no speed, no haste, no need for proof. Because she now knows the body's silence is not a muteness but a language. And only those who dare to delve into their own depths can understand that language. The voice of the outside world still screams, time is passing. Take action. Desire. Achieve something. But the woman is now deaf to that voice. She no longer fits into any role. She is neither lover nor spouse, neither admired nor labeled. She is simply herself. And this nakedness hurts at first, because being yourself is the greatest separation. But there, at the threshold of an invisible threshold, the woman stands. As she sheds her old self, her new self has not yet taken shape. This is a transition. It is where she hangs between the body's longing and the soul's call. She is tested. Emotions swirl. Old desires resurface. The whisper of the easy path seeks to drown out the silence of the deep. And the most painful part, no one understands what she is. An outsider might think he is lonely, but he has not withdrawn from the crowd. He has withdrawn into himself. This is not a disappearance, but a deepening. And not everyone can reach that depth, because that place is only open to those who dare to be reborn. I had a friend whom I loved dearly. He was 30 years old. He told me a story that I still hear in my mind's eye when I close my eyes. You know, he said one day during a quiet tea conversation, I'm going through something I can't tell anyone. Everyone sees me as fine from the outside. I have a job, a social circle. I'm not alone, but something else is happening inside me. Something quiet, deep, indescribable. Then, fixing his gaze on a single point, he added, I no longer want to be desired. At first I didn't fully understand what she meant, but she was very clear. Once upon a time, I felt I needed someone's gaze, touch, or attention to feel my existence. But one morning I woke up and realized, this is like constantly renting out my true self to the outside world. I no longer want them to see me. I want to see myself. That's when I realized it was a turning point for her. An internal breakdown, or rather labor pains. No one on the outside understood her. Her friends said, life is passing you by. You should have fun. Her family worried. Don't be alone. But she wasn't alone. She was alone with herself. And she turned to me and said, I am sitting in a kind of inner darkness right now. But this darkness is not emptiness. It is like a womb. Something is growing inside me. A self, another woman, a more real one. But it is not easy. Every word of hers still echoes inside me years later. Because as I listened to her, I realized something. She was speaking a language that women are not taught. The language of silence, of withdrawal, of distancing oneself from desire. There were very few women around me who knew this language. And when she spoke, I realized that this silence was not a punishment, but a call. She said, even when I seem like I'm not living at all, that's when I'm living the most. I feel like I'm boiling inside. It's not visible from the outside, because withdrawing inward is synonymous with becoming invisible in this world. But in that invisibility, I see myself for the first time. And then she smiled. You know, that kind of smile that comes from pain, tired but proud. I know, she said. It's a process. Sometimes I still feel afraid. I even wondered if I was going mad. But then I felt, this is a purification. Because I no longer want approval. I no longer wait to be chosen. I now choose only myself. After that day, I could no longer look at her the same way. Because when a woman chooses herself, the whole world begins to see her differently. Or rather, she no longer cares what the world thinks. And my friend is still on that path. It's not an easy path, but it's authentic. Sometimes she still writes to me from the silence. Her sentences are short, but there's an ocean within them. Because a woman who has come to know herself so deeply no longer needs words. She no longer speaks with words, but with her presence. Perhaps you are passing through the same places she did. Perhaps that silence is calling you now. If so, know that you are not alone. Silence is not an emptiness. It is the holiest space of transformation. When I looked into my friend's eyes that day, there was not just fatigue, but a kind of labor pain of rebirth. No one from the outside understood. Perhaps he couldn't fully describe what he was going through, but he felt that something had changed. Something was growing within the silence. This birth was not easy, and sometimes there were moments when he would say to me, this loneliness hurts more than being abandoned. Because it truly was. What appeared to be simple loneliness from the outside was an internal trial. Being far from desire, habits, familiar warmth. At first it felt like a protective state, but then it began to feel like a punishment. Why is the path that should reward me so difficult? He often asked. But this was not a punishment. It was a threshold that only prepared souls could cross. When he reached that threshold, The old voices resounded again. Life is passing by. Don't waste your youth. Don't overthink it. Just live. And then familiar desires came knocking at the door. Old patterns, old loves, easy invitations. Everything seemed to surround him, as if to test him once more. The most painful part was this. No one truly understood what he was going through. Go out a bit, they said. Hang out with people. You'll feel better. But he didn't want to feel better. He wanted to dissolve, to shed his old shell. Because this wasn't about withdrawing. It was about diving deep. And those who stay on the surface always misunderstand those who dive deep. This was the moment when the soul began to take control. The ego panics, because control is lost. Voices clash in the head. Should I give up? Is going this deep too much? But it is precisely in that silent chaos that the woman begins to take shape. Despite her tears, despite the lonely nights, the woman who continues to stay is called upon to break her cycle. And cycles cannot be broken by force. They dissolve through awareness. And then that moment arrives. The moment when the cocoon has grown too tight, movement has become difficult, and internal tension has become unbearable. And then right there, a brand new being begins to take shape. This is a self growing in the darkness of silence. The woman cannot describe it in words, but deep down, she knows. In the place everyone calls emptiness, she is actually filling up. An invisible voice accompanies her. It does not speak loudly, but it is stubbornly there. And that voice is ancient feminine wisdom. It does not explain. It makes her feel. It calls her to let go of the ordinary. The woman now hears only herself. The body has not stopped. It is in a ritual, a forgotten ceremony, but her spirit always knew how to walk. And slowly everything changes. Restlessness gives way to questions. Why did I always think I existed to be desired? Why did the absence of another make me feel incomplete? Why do I still need an outside perspective? But now the answers are not outside. They are sprouting inside. Now that woman no longer sees relationships as a kind of drug. She doesn't trade love just to avoid being alone. Even if the nights are silent, she knows that this silence is protection. The body doesn't stay silent. It holds. It makes room for the soul to carry on. And one day, all this transformation is complete. That woman no longer feels the need to be sought after. Because she is now the center. She is the spark. She is the light. And when that light shines, everyone who cannot bear its brilliance slowly retreats. Only the genuine remains. Those who come incomplete can no longer approach her. Because she is a woman who has become whole with herself. She no longer accepts the ordinary. Because she is not ordinary. When the body is silent, the soul chooses. And an awakened soul does not choose what once burned her soul again. And then she rises. But not to return to the world. To become the world. Every step she takes is now conscious. Her choices are made, not out of fear, but out of the value of existence. Though the body may still appear silent, it now vibrates at a new frequency. More subtle, deeper, more authentic. There is no rush to fill the voids. There is no longer a desire to fit into small spaces, for she has expanded. And the transformed woman no longer disappears anywhere. Because she is now within herself. That old anxiety has lost its meaning. The voices whispering that time is running out fall silent. Because she no longer chases life. Life walks through her. The woman striving to complete herself is gone, replaced by the woman living in her completeness. Half-hearted relationships, vague words, and consuming desires can no longer enter her space. Because her space is now sacred. It is untouchable. Though she may appear alone from the outside, she is actually more connected than ever before. But this connection is not to another person. It extends to herself, to the earth, to the universe, and to that invisible chain of women. Deep down she knows, this path is not hers alone. The paths of every woman who withdraws into silence are intertwined. Because when a woman delves into her own depths, she begins to hear not only her own voice, but also the suppressed voices of all women. She now experiences love differently, not by losing herself in another, but by seeing herself anew in another. She offers love not from a place of lack, but from an overflowing existence. And she expects the same from the other. Those who come incomplete cannot approach her, because she no longer needs to be completed by what is lacking. The things that once hurt her now become lessons. Those abandonments, those relationships that made her feel worthless, those moments of being forgotten, They now stand before her like tests for her soul, and she has passed these tests. Only her essence remains, her polished, refined, deepened essence. In this new state, she speaks less, but each word speaks volumes. She is less visible but more felt. Her presence now creates an impact, because this woman is no longer just someone who lives. She is someone who carries. She carries meaning in her silence, depth in her gaze, strength in her withdrawal. She is no longer impatient. She knows how to wait. She calls by waiting, without forcing, without imposing, simply by being. In this new self, her friendships also change. She no longer chooses only those who are by her side, but those who deepen with her. Superficial conversations become tiresome. Those who play roles, wear masks, and hide their truth slowly drift away, because she has returned to authenticity. And authenticity requires courage. Staying with her or disappearing with her requires courage. Over time, her presence becomes a kind of mirror. Other women begin to see themselves in her. Some admire her, others avoid her. But whether they realize it or not, everyone witnesses her transformation, because the presence of such a woman awakens the call within other women as well. Can I go there too? Can I return to myself too? Something begins deep inside, remembering. And so these women become the weavers of a new consciousness network. With silent but profound effects, they change the world around them, not with their words but with their very existence. A woman truly choosing herself is a revolution that touches the entire collective, because there are too many women in this world who have forgotten themselves. And when one woman remembers, it paves the way for others. Love comes on this journey, but it has changed direction. It is no longer outward flowing love, but inward flowing love, the love of a woman who has made peace with herself, forgiven her past, and sanctified her body. When this love chooses another, that person also transforms. Because this love is no longer a search, it is a sharing. It is not incomplete, it is whole. And the woman knows this love may come and go, but no one can harm the deep nest she has built within herself, because that is now her home. It cannot be destroyed by what the outside world says. It is not diminished by anyone's absence. Over time, the vibration of her soul reflects in her body. Her gaze changes, her voice softens but deepens. Her steps are slower but more rooted. It is as if every step she takes leaves a mark on the ground, because she is no longer walking for herself alone, but also for those who come after her. Not to leave a mark, but to pave the way. And one day the transformed woman looks in the mirror and sees that first spark in her eyes, the woman who remembers, who revives, who returns. She no longer wants to be saved, because she has given birth to herself. She no longer wants to be found, because she has found herself. And she no longer loves because she feels incomplete, nor does she cling out of fear of being forgotten. She simply loves, because she now overflows with herself. Therefore, those who encounter such a woman no longer meet her old self, but her new self. And they either choose to deepen with her, or remain on the surface. Because a transformed woman no longer stands still. She neither remains silent as before, nor wastes time explaining herself. She simply walks, quietly but firmly, unseen but felt, because she has become the world. And nothing can stop a woman who has begun to become the world. You know what struck me most was this: when a woman passes through her own darkness and holds herself with her own hands, no one needs to come and save her anymore, because she has already saved herself. And this changes everything. The place that was once filled with need now shines with awareness. The loneliness you once ran from now becomes a home. Over time you realize that no one was ever coming. You were always there. You were always there, but you couldn't hear it. Now you can hear it. Now when someone comes, they come not to complete you, but to accompany you. Because when you are whole, those who come before you do not come from a place of lack, but from a place of abundance. And you realize this: what you once called loneliness was actually your most crowded state. There were so many women inside you, forgotten, suppressed, silenced. They are all speaking now. They are all breathing with you now. Even love flows from a different place now. Love overflows from you. You don't wait. You don't force it. If you are going to form a bond, it will be with someone who truly touches your soul, not just to fill the void. And then your heart is no longer there to be broken, but to open. When you realize that what you thought was absence was actually protecting you, every lack becomes a prayer. Your body, yes, it may have been silent for a long time. Perhaps it was not touched. Perhaps it was not desired. But its silence was not a pillow. It was a temple. Because it gave you time, for you to be reborn, for you to be able to touch yourself, to feel yourself. And now that body is no longer a tool of validation. Now it is your home. When someone comes from the outside, they should come not to take you, but to walk with you. Because you no longer exist through someone else's gaze. You now exist through your own eyes. Things that once felt like abandonment now resonate within you, like a manifesto of freedom. Those old loves, the relationships you played a part in, the moments you silenced your voice, they all tell you now, the moment you began to be yourself, we had to leave. And you know now, those who leave do not diminish, they purify. Now you are in a different phase. You are neither waiting nor silent. You are simply being. In that case, existing is already a revolution. Because this world has silenced women who did not wait for themselves for far too long. But you are no longer silent. Because the woman inside you has started to speak. And that woman is not just you. The voices of all the women who have been silenced and forgotten for thousands of years are now echoing from within you. Perhaps you have no mission, but you have a calling. Your concern is not to show the way, but to be the light. The very presence of someone who is not afraid of the darkness is an invitation in itself. You are now honoring not only yourself, but all the women who were silenced before you. You have transformed the silence of your body into spiritual nourishment. That sense of fulfillment, which does not come from the outside, but rises from within, now carries you. When someone comes now, they will not find a hungry woman before them. They will encounter a calm, fulfilled, luminous woman. And for them you will not be a choice but a companion. I know, sometimes it's still hard. Sometimes you still ask yourself, am I doing the wrong thing? But no, this is not wrong. This is a transition, a transformation. A door opening to a new existence, and you are at the threshold of that door. Slowly, gently, you are passing through. Perhaps there is no one beside you, but remember, there is now so much more of you inside you. And one day, if a being who resonates with the call of your soul comes into your life, their eyes will understand your silence. Their hands will carry respect, not need. And you will be able to say, this time it's different. Because by then you will know, this love comes not from lack but from abundance. But until that day comes, the you that is with you is already the greatest wholeness. The silence you sit in is the truest bond. Because you are no longer just a living woman. You are a woman who hears herself, and no sound can drown out a woman who hears herself. No absence can make you forget. No belatedness can silence you. You are here now, within yourself, rooted and ready. And in this state, you have already changed everything. Once a woman chooses herself, she can no longer love anyone as she did before. This is not becoming loveless. On the contrary, it means ceasing to seek the source of love from outside. Because true transformation begins when a woman wakes up one morning and realizes she no longer needs another's love. Love is still within her, but no longer as a need, like an overflowing river. A flow ready to share, but not forcing itself. She used to think so many things were love. But now, looking back, she sees that most of them were just a disguised form of fear of loneliness. She remembers the moments when she repeatedly denied herself in order to belong to someone. The moments when she spoke less, showed more understanding, and quietly eroded her boundaries. The periods when she gave up herself in order to be loved. And a sentence rises from within her, I am no longer that person. Now she loves from a different place, with transparency, with unconditional love, but also with a rooted sense of self. She no longer wants to complete anyone. She doesn't want anyone to complete her either, because she is not incomplete. And there is no place in her heart for any love that makes her feel incomplete. This new state may seem strange to outsiders, cold, distant, unfounded. But for her, this is the true form of simplicity. She now offers her love as it is, without the excesses she once used to cover it with. Neither too little nor too much, just what she deserves. When you love someone, you no longer try to hold on to them. If the path is in front of you, you walk together. But if one person takes a step back, you don't follow. You say to yourself, if you stay, we'll grow deeper, but you don't say it out loud. You express it with a silent presence, because now you know staying is a choice. Love cannot be forced. Even in moments spent together, she no longer disappears as she once did. She now knows how to stay centered. She has learned that being with someone does not mean distancing herself from herself. Therefore, she no longer loses herself when forming a connection. A woman who has learned to love without forgetting herself now values balance over connection. Before, she measured love by proofs. Now she can feel love even in silence, because she knows that in true love there is no show, only depth. True connection grows in silence, not through words. Jealousy, possession, control. All of these now seem like an old language, because she now knows that bonds are not formed by restricting someone's freedom. So when she loves someone, she lets them be free. If they want to go, they can go, because her love is strengthened not by holding on but by being recognized. And most importantly, she no longer lies to herself. She doesn't accept being hurt by saying I love you. She doesn't normalize being ignored by saying I'm used to it. She now has an honest relationship with herself, and this changes the foundation of all other relationships. This state of being might be labeled as difficult by others, but she just smiles at that, because she knows what they call difficult is actually her boundaries. She no longer fears saying no, stepping back, or staying silent, because she has paid the price of losing herself countless times. Now there is a different kind of indifference within her, not tired but simple. Sometimes someone comes along, acting as they did before, excessive attention, quick words, bright promises. Once this attention would have enchanted her. Now she watches carefully. She listens more to intent than attention, more to behavior than words, because she now knows that true connection comes through time and honesty. What comes quickly goes quickly. She still believes in love, but she no longer expects a miracle. She loves like a woman who has emerged from fairy tales and returned to the earth. Her feet are on the ground, her heart beats slowly, but she loves with an open heart, because she no longer loves out of expectation but out of knowledge. When she chooses someone, she knows what it means. Choosing no longer comes from a fear of loss but from a deep desire for connection. And when someone chooses her, if they truly want to touch her light, they must be ready to pass through their own darkness. Because this woman no longer belongs to the surface. She calls to the depths, to reality, to truth. And if someone cannot carry this, they quietly withdraw. They do not leave, but they do not stay either, because she knows nothing incomplete can satisfy her soul anymore. Having made peace with loneliness, the presence of another cannot disrupt her wholeness. She no longer sees loneliness as a threat but as a foundation. She used to fear being alone. Now she is strong enough to choose loneliness. Being with someone is no longer a necessity, it is a choice. And this choice is made anew every day. She stays where she can say I am with you because I truly see you. Love is no longer drama for her but balance. Not shouting but whispering. Not running but staying. Not diminishing but multiplying. And most of all, it is liberating. When he loves someone, he only wants to walk the same path with them. He doesn't want to change them, fix them, or transform them. He just wants to accompany them on the path side by side, neither ahead nor behind, just eye to eye. And maybe that's why now she loves differently, deeply, calmly, without losing herself, overflowing with herself. Now I want something from you. Send this video to the woman you love most in this life, because this message should reach every woman with a beautiful soul, to every woman who turns inward, who is reborn in every silence, who transforms every lack into light. And in the comments write only this one word: I choose peace. Take care of yourself until we meet again in the next video.